Hi, my name's Sean Sanders, and this is my video for the Organizational Leadership Program at Texas A&M Commerce. This video is for the Capstone II course, which is the final course in the Organizational Leadership Program. So for this course, I was asked to make a video about my leadership journey. The first question here on the list is to reflect on my leadership ability when I began the course, the coursework, and some things about what I thought I knew about leadership when I started. So in the beginning, I think that I assumed that you had to be more iron-fisted, if you will, and maybe more of an autocratic style leader. I didn't think that democratic leadership was necessarily as effective. I think that I've learned that there are certainly more than one way to get things done, and democratic leadership absolutely will work. It's got a lot more to do with the people than it does with you as a leader per se. You have to look to them and see what they need and meet those needs. So definitely a lot of learning for me throughout the course. Now we've got some areas of the course, some different courses that we're asked to go over. So the first course is Issues in Organizational Leadership. And this course was kind of an overview of different leadership styles, different organizational styles, theories on leadership. We had to do a personal leadership strategy, which kind of helped me understand more about what I thought about leadership and where I thought I fell in that spectrum, so on and so forth. I think that was pretty good to get a baseline on where we were at, and something to reflect on certainly as time goes on. Laid the groundwork, if you will, for the entire major program and everything involved with it. One of the most interesting courses, there was two of them, were data-driven decision making, and it taught you how to extrapolate data and get the information you need to show where you need to make changes or where you're successful. Really it allows you to leverage the data in a multitude of ways. I learned some great things about Excel, how to use that to my advantage. Just really interesting courses. I would say one of the keys was one of the data sets that we had was missing a lot of information. So it kind of shows you the importance of having all the information, or as much as possible, and if you don't, then you kind of have to fill in the blanks and get creative. So maintaining good records is also an important part of leadership. The next two-term course was Behavior, Ethics, and Leadership, and we had to do a couple of case studies on some pretty big companies. The first one was on the Ford Motor Company and the Ford Pinto and the problems they had with the gas tanks in the late 70s. And how Ford chose to deal with that problem. They probably could have handled the situation better. It's hard to say whether they thought they were doing right or not, but they could have handled it better. The second one, which was probably the most interesting case study, was Nissan. And the gentleman they hired from the Renault company to come in and revamp their struggling auto facilities. He used a mix of leadership styles. I think he knew what needed to be done when he took over, but he took the time to approach it from a democratic standpoint and ask people what they thought, and engage his people and empower them to make the decisions. Even though he already knew the answers, he allowed them to find them and move forward. And I think that was certainly very strong from a leadership aspect on his part. So, he went through some process improvement. He definitely had a clear vision. You know, it was pretty impressive from the stuff I read about him and how he turned that company around. The next course was Leadership Theory 1 and 2. We had to do, in the first term, a SWOT analysis, which I had never performed. I did that on the organization I'm currently involved with, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Very, very good to take a look in the mirror, if you will, organizationally, and see what you're doing good, what you're not, and what's happening around you. Trying to kind of foresee some potential problems and how to go about those. So I think that's it was really beneficial to do that and understand what to look for and just how to go about the whole process and self-evaluation. I thought that was really good. Helps to keep your organization on track and make sure you're headed in the right direction. I think that's certainly something that I will use in the future as I progress through my career as a leader. Second term was a process improvement plan, how to implement it, how to budget for it, how to make it happen. And I think a lot of times we probably underestimate what all is involved in making things happen in an organization of any size. There's several steps, several considerations. Just going through that process was definitely helpful for me to understand what all's involved in the process and how to look at it. So being able to plan that out, organize it, implement it. There's just a lot of steps. I thought it was really interesting to look at it all and understand how to go about it. When you get in a leadership role and you need to make a big change, having some guidelines on how to go about that, it was very interesting. The course prior to the 2 capstones was Leading Change, and just looks at organizational change, how it happens, gives you the ability to have some foresight into some potential problems that might arise with the change, and how to make those changes. So this was also a very interesting course. Now the 2 capstones. I probably learned the most from these 2 classes for a multitude of reasons. For Capstone 1, I was tasked with interviewing 2 leaders that were not in my current field or my sphere of influence. I chose a local pastor and a banker, and I learned a great deal from each of them. Just about how they run their organizations, how they operate, how they choose to go about leading their own organizations. Some great tips. A hallmark that came up continuously through both leaders, even though they operated differently, was learning. The continuation of learning, reading, studying other leaders, staying engaged. It was really interesting. A lot of all the information we learned really came together for me in Capstone 1's leadership analysis. Just being able to see what they were talking about, how they approach things, and then being able to apply the information that I'd learned throughout the course. Analyzing them allowed me, I guess, to kind of analyze the way that I would have handled situations or looked at things, and it was a great resource for me in that aspect. Capstone II allowed me to analyze a different organization from the outside looking in, as a consultant, if you will, coming in looking at it completely different than the people involved in the organization might look at it. And I feel like this was also very helpful. Just, sometimes it's hard to take a look in the mirror and see what you're really up against, and what the problems are. Being honest with yourself is sometimes difficult. So having someone come in and do that, I feel like would be beneficial. And again, knowing how to do that, and looking at something subjectively, it taught me a lot about the way organizations run, identifying potential problems again, and coming up with some creative ideas on how to solve those problems. So I feel like this was also very helpful. And then the second part of Capstone 2 has been this video, which has been good to go back over everything that we've learned, and try to analyze where I've come from, where I'm going, and what's next. So the next question is to describe myself as a leader today. And I would say, without question, I'm much more of a democratic leader than I was before. I don't currently hold any formal leadership positions, but I certainly make an effort not to believe that my way is the best way. I listen to others around me, try to take input. I've learned a lot in that aspect on how to use those around us, and be able to serve them, but also listen to their input, and just be a better leader overall. The last question is, where do I see myself going from here, and what do I need to continue this leadership journey? So I will continue to read, to learn, to study other leaders. I think that is huge. I found some different authors and subject matter experts along the way that I have tuned into, listening to podcasts, reading their books, so on and so forth. I think that's really good. And just like I said, staying engaged with trends, theories. Obviously, the evolution of leadership in the last 150 years has been remarkable, so who knows what's coming. But I would say what I need is to continue to keep myself engaged, just to keep plugging away, keep reading, keep learning, keep listening, and evaluate myself honestly, where I am as a leader. So I think that's also ultimately very important. So with that being said, I appreciate your time. I certainly appreciate the program and everything that I learned from it. And I don't have anything else, so thank you so much.